أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم عبد الله ورسوله أما بعد. We thank the Almighty Allah for another opportunity. We thank Him for His mercies that He's bestowed upon us. We bear witness that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the messenger of the Almighty Allah, and before that we bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship except the Almighty Allah. Alhamdulillah, today is a Sunday, the 10th day of Shawwal, 1444 years after the hijrah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It also corresponds with the 30th day of April 2023. After a break for Ramadan, we are back with our Seerah series, where we are looking at the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the lessons we can pick, in our day-to-day lives from learning from the Seerah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And just a recap of, from the first episode we had, all those months back, the importance of the Seerah gives us a blueprint for Muslims as to how we're going to live our lives. Because the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is our number one role model. And how he lived his life is what we are going to emulate in this life to gain pleasure with Almighty Allah in this dunya and the akhirah. So learning the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is compulsory for every Muslim if we really want to practice Islam the way we are supposed to practice Islam. That's number one. Number two, the seerah gives us, an identity as Muslims, especially those of us living in the West, where we have all forms of ideologies and all forms of thoughts going around. The seerah gives us an identity as to who we are, as to how we're going to live our lives with other people from other, ideologies and other. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam lived in Mecca with non-Muslims. How are we going to do that? And then finally, the seerah is also a legacy that we're going to leave behind for our kids. Because of course, we're not going to live forever. We're going to go. And our kids are going to be the ones who are going to take over from us. So what legacy are we leaving behind for the younger ones who are coming up? In the last episode, we look at, how the kuffar persecuted the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his Sahaba. And this is one of the sunnah of life. One of, the normal things of life, that we will go through persecutions. So long as you are steadfast on the deen, you're going to go through persecutions. It's going to happen, whether you like it or not. Sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly. Sometimes it's going to be physical. Sometimes it's not going to be direct. So the kuffar realized that the messenger of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was moving at a very fast pace, and they needed to do something about it. They tried all means. We spoke about that in the last episode. They went to see his uncle Abu Talib to try to speak to him so that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, would stop the message. They tried to even, entice the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself with goodies. If you want money, we'll give you money. If you want to be the king of Mecca, we'll make you the king of Mecca. They tried all the ways that they want to do. The other form that they tried was that when it is time for Hajj, and the Arabs were coming to Mecca for pilgrimage, they knew definitely the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was going to give his message out. So they will go out of their way to try to, discourage the people from listening to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When they did all this, it didn't work. Things became now physical. It became very bloody. Imam Muslim narrates a hadith from Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, where he said, Abu Jahl said, هل يعفر محمد وجهه بين أظهرنا. Muhammad has the audacity to come publicly to humiliate us. Because the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam will come publicly to the Kaaba to come and do his tawaf or come and do his nawafil. And Abu Jahl was like, so Muhammad has the audacity to come in front of us publicly to humiliate us. Wallati wal Uzza. He swear by Allah and Al Uzza. لَإِنْ رَأَيْتُهُ يَفْعَلْ ذَلِكَ لَأَطَعَنَّ عَلَى رَقَبَتِهِ. If he comes again to the haram to come and do all these things that he's doing, I'm going to break his neck with my knees. أَوْ لَأَعْفِرَنَّ وَجْهَهُ فِي التُّرَابِ. Or I'm going to drag his face on the earth. قال فأتى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وهو يصلي. And then the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to do his salah as usual. And Abu Jahl got up to go and do what he wanted to, said he was going to do. And then the people saw him running away. When he got closer to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he started running away and then using his hands to cover his face. فَقِيلَ لَهُ مَالَكَ. And they told him, what happened? We thought you said you're going to break the guy's neck. What happened? Why are you running away? فَقَالَ. He said, إِنَّ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَهُ لَخَنْدَقًا مِّن نَارٍ. He said, between me and Muhammad was a huge ditch full of fire. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Almighty Allah gave him that protection. But even that, the Almighty Allah made him to go through some of, some persecution. From Urwa to Ibn Zubayr, where أشد ما صنع المشركون برسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, the kuffar do to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt, he came to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was praying, and this guy took his rida, his cloth, and then he put it around the neck of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then he tightened it, wanting to kill the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. فجاء أبو بكر حتى دفعه عنه, and Abu Bakr Siddiq came and then he pushed him away, freeing the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then he said, أَتَقُلْتُلُونَ رَجُلًا أَنْ يَقُولَ رَبِّي اللَّهِ. Are you going to kill a man because he says Allah is my Lord? The Sahaba went through a lot of things in this. A lot of trouble, a lot of trauma, a lot of beatings. In another hadith by Abu Ya'la, he said, لَقَدْ ضَرَبُوا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ مَرَّةً حَتَّى غُشِيَ عَلَيْهِ. They beat the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam till he passed out. فَقَامَ أَبُو بَكْرَ فَجَعَلَ يُنَادِي. Abu Bakr came and رَجُلًا أَنْ يَقُولَ رَبِّيَ اللَّهِ. Are you going to kill a man because he says Allah is my Lord? From Bukhari and Muslim, he said one day and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was praying near the Masjid, near the Kaaba, and Abu Jahl and his group, his thugs, came. And the night before, they had slaughtered some camels. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was praying, and Abu Jahl said, who amongst you will go to the abattoir, to the butcher house, and then get us some rotten intestines of the camels that we slaughtered yesterday and bring it? So one of them got up. It says Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt. He got up and then he went and then he brought those rotten intestines of the camel, and then they came and then they placed it on the back of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam whilst he was praying. They laughed, and then they make mockery of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Fatima radiallahu anha, she came and then she cleaned, or she took off the wife of Abu Lahab. In our tafsir class in Ramadan, we spoke about it. The wife of Abu Lahab. And Abu Lahab is uncle to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And his wife Jamil, she will go and look for trash to put it on the path of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or she will look for some thorny, wood to come and put it on the path of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when Almighty Allah revealed the surah Tabbat Yada Abi Lahab, may the hands of Abi Lahab be cursed and he himself be cursed, and the wife was mentioned in the surah, she looked for it. She came in and she found Abu Bakr, and she said, Abu Bakr, where is your friend? And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sitting next to Abu Bakr. So Abu Bakr will look at her, and then he will look at Rasulullah. And she's asking him, Abu Bakr, I said, where is your friend? What's going on? I'm going to break left. And Abu Bakr was like, Ya Rasul. And the Prophet Muhammad, or her sight. Allah blended all this with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sometimes he will be protected. Sometimes so that you really respect the religion. Yourself had to go through all these challenges, situations and conditions, so that you and I, when we come today and then we are praying 5 times, we remember that seriousness and all these 9. We remember that the Sahaba used to pray on the bare floor in the heat of the Arabian desert. When we come today and then we are able to go to Hajj and then we do tawaf, with tiled floor in the masjid in the heat of the sun, you get air conditioning coming out of the tiles on the floor where your leg or your foot. The Sahaba had to flee for. We are not just know what happened. People went through. People who were living, who were not original citizens of the community. One day his body. ضربه بعض أهل مكة. The sanction of Mecca had beaten the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. فقال له مالك. And Jibril said, Muhammad, what's wrong? What happened? قال فعل بي هؤلاء ما فعلوا. These people have done to me what you can see. They've beaten me until blood is dripping from my body. فقال له جبريل أتحب أن أريك آية. He said, do you want me to show you something? Do you want to see something? And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, yes. فنظر إلى شجرة من وراء الوادي. And then he looked at a tree. This hadith is found in Musnad Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal. The Prophet Muhammad saw a tree, and then Jibril told him, call the tree. And the Prophet Muhammad called the tree, and the tree came to the Prophet Muhammad. And Jibril told him, tell the tree to go back. And the Prophet Muhammad told the tree to go back, and the tree went back. فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم حسبي, I'm fine. If these people are not listening to me, these trees are listening to me. They are obeying me. This hadith can be found in Musnad Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, and it's also found in Fathur Rabbani. And it's an authentic hadith. It's found in Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, and the men who narrated the hadith are also men that Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim used them. رِجَالُهُ مِنْ رِجَالِ الصَّحِيحَيْنِ. So the Almighty Allah blended all this for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, just to give him that peace of mind, to give him that tranquility, to put him in that he is a Muslim. Sometimes he will tie him. Mus'ab ibn Umair, he was a very handsome young man. When Mus'ab ibn Umair passes through his own mother, the house, people who were persecuted. All these people went through these challenges. And sometimes if you look at your life, realize that some of us went through those challenges when we accepted Islam. It might not be as severe as what the Sahaba had gone through, but some of us faced those challenges. That you accept Islam as a teenager, you come home, your family disowns you. The whole neighborhood wants to do nothing with you. They cut whatever, whatever goodies you're enjoying, it's cut off. And sometimes not even accepting Islam, but sometimes moving away from bid'ah to sunnah causes you a lot of pain too. What kind of person are you? We remember we were kids when the issue of sunnah started, the da'wah of sunnah started back home in Ghana. And it was a real problem. These people have brought a new religion. We don't know what they're saying. This is not Islam. And all kinds of names. Wahhabis. We've been given all kinds of names. Yeah. Some people calling us Osama bin Laden because we grow beard. All kinds of names. So it's not easy when you stand on the right path. When you stand on the truth. And sometimes it's not even outside, even within the Sunni circle. If you want to be practicing, some of the Sunni brothers want to see you as if you are too Sunni. Sometimes it happens. We learn and study these things so that we'll be able to pick, some lessons from these situations. And it was not only in Mecca. It went outside Mecca. It was not only men, but also women. For example, there was a woman who, her husband accepted Islam. I think her name is Ghaziya bint Jabir. Her husband accepted Islam and he had to flee the village. They caught her, they beat her and they left her in the sun, the heat of the Arabian desert. As a result, she went blind and deaf. They came later prodding her with a stick for her to accept Islam, to denounce Islam. Even in her state, she will point to the skies, meaning there's only one God and he's up there. So the kuffar did all that, and then it didn't stop. We're going to look at some of the families that, the kuffar picked out alone to punish them, because there's a lot of lessons in there. For example, Ali Yasir, Ammar, and Yasir, Sumayya. These three people have left for us a legacy in standing fast with Almighty Allah in terms of persecution. Yasir happens to be someone who has allegiance with the tribe of Abu Jahl, I think Banu Makhzum. And they gave him Sumayya as a wife. And then they gave birth to a son called Ammar. Ammar had accepted Islam, and he was able to convince his mother Sumayya to accept Islam. But the old man was not in the know. So one day Ammar and the early Muslims were out there in the mountains in Mecca secretly meeting, and then Abu Sufyan came passing by and then he saw them. So there was an exchange of words. In the end, they had to throw stones at each other. And Ammar was amongst those who were hurt. When he came home, his father saw him bleeding. He was like, Ammar, you're a nice boy. What's wrong? Why are you bleeding? How? What happened? And then he said they were they had some give and take with Abu Sufyan. His father was like, are you mad? Abu Sufyan, one of the nobles of Mecca, and you aren't you scared? And Ammar told him, yeah, Daddy, who is he? He's nobody. In the end, they spoke to the man. The man was convinced of Islam, but then he was afraid for his life that if he accepts Islam, people like Abu Lahab, he has seen people like Abu Bakr being beaten to pulp. He has seen Uthman bin Affan being dragged on the streets of Mecca. All these ashraf, all these noble people of Quraysh, and he, someone who is an outsider, can he stand these people? But in the end, he accepted Islam secretly between himself and then his wife and then his kid. They were there practicing Islam. But then one day his wife Sumayya will go to the other women and then help them with their house chores. So one day she had brought Abu Jahl some milk or some drink, and then Abu Jahl, made a very derogatory statement on the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Sumayya couldn't control herself. She didn't contain it. And then she responded back. And Abu Jahl realized that no, this woman had accepted Islam. So she was caught with the husband and then the son in the heat of the Arabian desert. And, sometimes I get emotional when I'm speaking about the story of Sumayya. Because of Islam was a woman. The first person to accept Islam was a woman. The first person to sponsor Islam with their wealth was a woman. And arguably, the greatest scholar the Ummah has ever seen is a woman, Aisha radiallahu anha. So women play a great role in Islam. They are there at the forefront of Islam. The actors and the actors. We the men are the actors on the field in Islam. And the women, they are the producers and the directors because they give birth to the men. And this is how the Almighty Allah has placed his deen. So Sumayya, he was killed. Her husband Yasir was killed. And Ammar, their son, was left because he had to make a statement that didn't come out of his heart. He had to denounce Islam to save his life. And then he came running to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And before that, when they were being punished, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when they're being persecuted, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam passes by them and then he tells them, "Sabran ya Ali Yasir, fa inna maw'idakum al-jannah." He said, "Oh Ali Yasir, be patient. Just stick in there. Hold on. Don't worry. Inna maw'idakum al-jannah. Your final destination is Jannah. What these people are doing to you, you will forget about it in Jannah. The persecutions that we go through, we might not be facing bloody persecutions now. We might not be facing, even though it's still there. In Ramadan, one of the imams in Patterson, New Jersey, was stabbed when he was leading Salah. And some years back ago in Christchurch in New Zealand, in Juma, someone entered the Masjid and then he opened fire. So it's still there. The bloody persecutions are still there. Muslims are being persecuted bloody. Some of us might not be facing that. We might be facing some technical persecutions. We might be facing some ideological persecutions. And may the Almighty Allah safeguard us from both. It's not easy. That you are faced with persecution, that it gets to an extent whereby you must water down your deen. You must come down a notch. Because if you don't come down a notch, your life is what? Your life is at threat. May the Almighty Allah safeguard us from that. May the Almighty Allah give us the peace, the tranquility, and the ability to practice our deen without hindrance. Allah is very, very important. So Ammar, made a statement of kufr. And Jumhur al-Mufassirin, the majority of the Mufassirin are saying that this verse that was revealed, وَمَنْ كَفَرَ بِاللَّهِ مِنْ بَعْدِ إِيمَانِهِ إِلَّا مَنْ أُكْرِهَ وَقَلْبُهُ مُطْمَئِنُّ بِالْإِيمَانِ. The person who apostates, مِنْ بَعْدِ إِيمَانِهِ, after he has been a believer, إِلَّا مَنْ أُكْرِهَ وَقَلْبُهُ مُطْمَئِنُّ بِالْإِيمَانِ, except the person who is forced in there. Word of kufr, and then he said the kufr. But the scholars have had some back and forth concerning that if your life is being threatened, Can you deny Islam so that you save yourself? Majority of the scholars are saying no, that is a weak position to take. That's a weak position to take. Because there's azima and then there's rukhsa. Rukhsa is the discount. The azima is the originality. They say it is better to meet the Almighty Allah with your blood. Why? How did you come here? I was killed because of you. But the fact that someone will also say, okay, I'm no longer a Muslim, and then he saved himself, but that in wrong. So in the Quran that فَإِنْ عَادُوا, you can take in that is meet the Almighty Allah in that way, and that is best. But then, if your level of iman is no, you pull back and say, no, guys, it's full of iman, and say there's nothing wrong with that. But all the scholars say there's nothing wrong with that. But then they said that the first position is stronger. It is the best position to meet the Almighty Allah on that instant. I know you have questions. We'll come to that, inshallah. Fast forward, another person who was persecuted, Bilal ibn Rabah. There's a difference of opinion concerning who Bilal was. Was he an Ethiopian or was he a Nubian? Because when you go to Egypt, it was achieved by dark-skinned people, historically. And they were the Nubians. And the Nubians, up till now, they are still found in Egypt. Because 2 years ago when I went to Cairo, I went to a shop to buy some perfumes right next to the museum in downtown Cairo. And we're speaking to the shop owner concerning Egyptians and stuff. He said, no, he is not an Egyptian. He is a Nubian. And they're still there, but they're a minority. They're a minority in Egypt. And he spoke of some political persecutions here and there and stuff like that. So some of the narrations say that Bilal ibn Rabah is a Nubian. Ibn Hajar speaks about it. And Bukhari speaks about Fadail Ashab Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Bab Manaqim Bilal. And that's where there is a difference of opinion, whether he was an Ethiopian or a Nubian. So it's a difference of opinion, whether he's an Ethiopian or he's a Nubian. But then the fact is that he is a dark-skinned person. He's a dark-skinned person. Some said he was captured as a slave before Islam in Jahiliyyah. He was captured and then finally he was sold in Mecca. And his master was Umayyah ibn Khalaf. And Bilal ibn Rabah was a very smart man. He was not that strong in terms of build physically, but he had a sharp mind, sharp brain. So what the Meccans usually do was that if they had slaves, they put them into, circles to fight. Like how the Romans did with the gladiators, So the Arabs use that. And then, so if you have more slaves, stronger slaves, you win more fights, yes, more prize. So this reminds me, the father of Abu Bakr Siddiq was buying slaves and then he was freeing them because they were being persecuted. His father called him, he said, what's wrong with you? I hear nowadays you've been buying slaves, but I hear you've been buying weak slaves, weak ones, people who cannot help you in your farm, who cannot help you in your business, who even cannot help you to protect you anytime someone wants to attack you. And then he told him, Daddy, I'm buying them for tomorrow. He said, tomorrow? What's tomorrow? He said, on the day of Qiyamah. So the Arabs had this, this thing. And there was this other slave, Wahshi ibn Harb, who was very strong. So he was a good wrestler. So he was winning the fights. Then Safwan ibn Umayyah, the son of Umayyah, he saw Bilal, his father. Are you sensible? Not slaves who can speak, how to talk. Islam told is more dangerous than a slave with a spear in hand. Than a Islam, the master tactician of Islam, because he was a brainiac. Fast forward, accept Islam, but then they got hit that Bilal had accepted Islam, and that is when the whole world the streets of Mecca with a rope would drag him in the streets of Mecca. You've been to Mecca, you know how hilly the place is. Even now, look at the development, the paved roads, the air conditioning system and stuff like that. Even with the air conditioning system, when you come out of the street, that yes, there's something in there. Then they'll take him out, and then he'll be placed in the heat of the desert, and they'll them that really to them that they told him, La tazalu hakadha hatta tamut. You will never, this your situation and condition will never change until you die or you change, and then you denounce Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Amr ibn As said, cooked because of the heat. Umayyah will be furious. It got to a point because he was punished, but it got to a point whereby the people of Makkah were laughing at him because he was even more wary in the whole issue than Bilal. He was angry. He couldn't do anything. In the end, Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu came, and then he bought Bilal and he freed him. But Bilal told him before that, In kunta innama ishtaraytani linafsika fa'amsikni. If you're going to buy me for yourself, then leave me be. But then, if you're going to buy me, then leave me to do the work. Also, one of the companions who were being punished and persecuted. Slavery in Jahiliyyah, in the Arab time, was not only based on skin color. If they raided you, if they raid your community and then you are captured, you become slaves. So you find people of different colors and people of different backgrounds who were slaves in the Arab community. It's not only blacks. It was just raiding. They raid your community and then they capture your women and slaves. But to this part of the world, you find kings amongst them. You find princes amongst them. You find scholars amongst them. You find warriors amongst them. You find people of nobility amongst them. But then because the mindset of this person is just conquering, I'm just going to conquer, I'm just going to do whatever I want to do because I have power, I'm in a position of power. So the mindset is that if you have a dark skin, then you are what? Then you're supposed to be a slave. And the other thing was that when Islam became the dominant force in Arabia, for example, we said today at Fajr, if you make a statement that if you have sexual relations with your wife, it's like you've had sexual relations with your own mother, the punishment for that is you free a slave. And other forms of, kafarat that you're supposed to, to free a slave. So that's the mentality. So Khabbab ibn al-Arad, ibn Jandalatu, ibn Sa'd, ibn Khuzaymah, ibn Tamim, at-Tamimi, Quraysh, they are from he was also punished. They put a burning flame of stone on his chest. The people who were punished Hamama, the mother of Bilal, she was punished. Amir ibn Fuhayra wa Ummu Abis wa Zinnira al-Nahdiyya Jariyat Bani Adi. All these people were punished because of their deen. In a nutshell, the reason why we spoke about these, these persecutions and give us vivid examples of these people is that you will get to a point in our struggle will not relent. They will continue, whether you like it or not. Whether you think you were safe or not. Every day, new tactics are being devised to separate you from your deen. It's a fact, and they don't hide it. They don't hide it. It's clear. It's there in social media. It's there in the electronic media, in the print media. It's there. Even curriculums, educational curriculum are being changed so that to destroy the identity of our communities. So until you build your family and yourself on the sound aqidah and the sound creed, on the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's not going to be easy. I need to be very, very clear on that. And this is what the Sahaba went through. We might be facing an ideological warfare. And it's very clear. The British House of Commons, and this is declassified information though. British House of Commons in the late 19th century, the then Prime Minister of Britain, Mr. Gladstone, went to the British House of Commons. And then he said, if we want to destroy Islam, clear, plainly, there was no, if we want to destroy Islam, we must take care of three things. So what are those things? He said the first one is the Quran. When we destroy the Quran, we destroy these people. And then one British MP, he got a copy of the Quran and then he started turning it into pieces. He said, millions and billions are being pumped in there. And it's sweeping, it's catching fire. And you meet Muslim youth today, and then you ask them, what do you want to be? Where do you see yourself in the next 5-10 years? It's only about entertainment. It's only about showbiz. Where they said they're going to have Salah, Eid, program for the kids. And they put Muslim kids as young as 5, 6, 4-year-olds on stage singing and dancing. That's how they're celebrating their Eid. When other people are organizing Quran memorization competitions and Hadith memorization competition, some members of the Muslim community say, because this is a day of merrymaking, we're going to sing and dance. Other communities are investing in education. We want to invest in entertainment. That's number one. Number two, he said, if we want to destroy Islam, let's destroy the Friday prayer. Salatul Jum'ah. Because they don't understand. In the middle of the day, no matter what you're doing as a Muslim, Jum'ah comes first. And no matter how deviant a Muslim is, no matter how irresponsible a Muslim is, on Friday, he wants to get his jalbab and his kufi to come to the masjid. They don't understand that. There's a secret in the Friday prayer. The third point, he said, is Yawm Arafah. The day of Arafah. Why is it that these people want to go to that place? That desert, heat, rocky place where the air is very, very calamitous. They don't understand that. So as Muslims, standing firm on our aqidah is very, very important. Number two, standing firm on the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in our day-to-day activities. You might have aqidah, I believe in Almighty Allah, I believe, but then the sunnah is the practicality of what? Of the aqidah. Because the aqidah is theoretical. But the sunnah, that's what? That's the practice of the aqidah. And until you put it into practice, we have a long way to go. And let's understand one thing. Just saying I'm on the sunnah doesn't mean you're on the sunnah until you are really on the sunnah. This is a fact. Until we put it in practice, this deen is a practical religion. It's practice, it's act, it's doing. And then when you do that, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَمَعَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Whoever strives on the path of the Almighty Allah, the Almighty Allah says, لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. I will guide you to my path. And then verily, the Almighty Allah is amongst those who are sincere, who purify their actions. So anytime you hear in the Quran, Almighty Allah says, Inna alladhina amanu, He says, wa amilu salihat. You believe and then you what? You act upon it. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen wa assalamu alaikum. I think we have 5 more minutes before Salah. We'll take one question because I know you have a question. You forgot the question. Yes, can we, there's the end button, just end. End.